The worst injury to a basketball player last year in a game wasn't even caught on camera. Aron Baynes had to run to the bathroom during Australia's game at the Olympics, but he never came back. His coach got worried, and when the team found him, they thought he might be dead. Thankfully, he did survive, but what happened next is painful to even talk about. Right now, Baynes is back in Australia hoping to get back to the NBA. He may never get there, but just having that as a motivation might give him a chance to live a normal life after what happened. Aron Baynes is part of the greatest generation of Aussie basketball players. They've had NBA players in the past like Luke Longley or Andrew Bogut, but to have a Baynes, Patty Mills, Joe Ingles, Matisse Thybulle, and Matthew Dellavedova on the same team was next level. Most of those guys played the game from an early age, but Aron was actually a rugby player growing up. If you're familiar with Aron Baynes, you know that fits his personality as like a tough guy, but he wasn't in love with rugby. Then his brother Callum went off to college and started playing basketball. One day, the coach heard a rumor that Callum's younger brother Aron was a freakishly tall, athletic kid, and he invited him to practice at 15 years old. So Aron played his first game of basketball at 15. He didn't even know how to dribble, let alone shoot, but he immediately knew he loved basketball already more than rugby. Aron had dreamed about being a pro athlete someday, but after high school graduation, he moved to a bigger city to attend the Australian Institute of Sport. Other great Aussies played there, so tons of American colleges were scouting for the next Andrew Bogut, who went #1 overall in the 2005 draft. Aron was soon offered a full scholarship to Washington State, which is actually where Klay Thompson went. So Aron went there to play for Coach Tony Bennett, who would eventually win a national championship with Virginia 10 years later. But it turned out Aron was not the next Andrew Bogut, and he went undrafted after playing all 4 years in college. So instead of trying to make the NBA through like the G League, he opted to go pro in Europe instead, and he signed with a team called Lietuvos Rytas that also had a 17-year-old named Giannis Antetokounmpo. Giannis quickly took off for the NBA, obviously, but Aron wasn't even close to good enough. He'd only been playing ball for 7 years, and he knew nothing about how to be a pro. In college, if you had a bad game, it's okay, you're just a kid, you're not getting paid, whatever. In Europe, 2 bad games means you're out of the rotation. So he bounced around Europe from Lithuania to Germany. Then, after a breakout season, finally in Greece, he signed with Olympia in Slovenia. There he became the most prolific rebounder in European basketball, which naturally caught the eye of the San Antonio Spurs. The Spurs have been drafting in Europe for years. You know, Tony Parker from France, Manu Ginobili, who was playing in Italy, Patty Mills was playing in China, and Aron felt home in San Antonio, so they signed him to a 4-year contract after seeing him for just a few months. It was the perfect time to become a Spur too, because he got to learn from Tim Duncan, he got to play with his friend and fellow Aussie Patty Mills, and he got back to being a role player, but on a really talented team. The Spurs lost to LeBron's Heat that first season, but the next year, Aron played 7 minutes a night in the 2014 run to the championship. Yes, he wasn't the most important player, but he partied like a champ.
You guys played great, man.
Thanks, man.
Aron and Patty took the Larry O'Brien Trophy all around Australia and continued the party.
So he's ahead.
How did that reporter not be like, okay, I'm a sports reporter, I don't know the NBA, but that's a 7-foot guy with a gold trophy. But like so many European Spurs players, he didn't stay with them his entire career. Boban Marjanovic got his start on the Spurs, still in the league. Davis Bertans is now with the Mavericks after being in DC, and he got paid. But Aron may not play another game the rest of his life after that horrible day at the Olympics. After the Spurs, though, he went to the Pistons, to the Celtics, and the Suns. He was never known for having a great game. I'd say most people recognize him for getting dunked on by Joel Embiid.
Now Simmons in transition. What a pass to Embiid! My goodness!
Despite that really embarrassing moment, though, Baynes was still a super proud dude when it came to playing for his country. Most Americans actually don't understand what it means for international players, but playing for your country is sometimes bigger than playing in the NBA. That golden generation of Australia had a chance to win gold in Japan after beating Team USA twice before the Olympics. So Baynes was warming up before their first official Olympic match when he slipped on the rim during a dunk. He had just put hand sanitizer on and he slipped right off and landed on his neck and his head. He was able to play the first half of that game, but people would wonder if that fall had anything to do with his horrible accident a few days later. The Aussies advanced to the semifinals against Italy, but Aron had to use the bathroom before the fourth quarter. So he remembers jogging into the locker room, but then nothing after that. When the team found him, he was unconscious and he couldn't stand up. When a stretcher came, he said, "Oh no, I still need to use the bathroom." So he stood up, but then just crumpled to the ground because his legs were paralyzed. To make things worse, Aron had to go to the hospital in Japan alone because of COVID. He couldn't understand what the doctors were saying and had no idea how bad things were. Aron told ESPN, "My uncle Don had an accident 10 years ago. He's a quadriplegic. My family's had first-hand experience with this going down. I was so scared." Eventually, Aron's wife contacted a doctor in Australia who then worked with the Japanese on a plan to get him back home. The hospital started letting team doctors in to visit 15 minutes at a time. So his teammate Matthew Dellavedova dressed up as a doctor to go see him. And that was a nice distraction, but what Delly saw was terrifying. Aron was struggling to walk and he was having to relearn how to stack cups like his 2-year-old son was doing back home. Eventually, Aron was barely able to fly back home, but he had to be strapped to a board for the 4,000-mile flight. Aron has spent the last 7 months in Australia with his wife and his kids continuing to rehab. He is now actually able to run and he can get up shots when he's not watching NBA games. The good news is people will see him out on the street and they have no idea he was almost paralyzed for good, but he's nowhere near making it back to the league. I mean, can a 35-year-old with marginal skills, let's be honest, make it back to the best league in the world? I mean, I don't know, but Aron honestly believes that he can, especially with the increased physicality and rule changes this year. He is grinding every day with trainers and watching his old friend Dellavedova play pro games in Australia, and Aron is hungry for another chance. And honestly, that drive may not end in an NBA contract, but he's using it every day to get healthy. Guys, I got 2 more What Happened To videos that are 2 of my personal favorites. We've actually done a lot on this channel. What happened to Zaza Pachulia and what happened to Jermaine O'Neal? And if you want like a really feel-good story, Jermaine's the way to go.